What's up, guys? Today is a pretty rough day so far. Bitcoin is selling off really near 100,000, the psychological level. Bitcoin is under its 50 MA on the weekly. We're going to look at the chart and see what has happened before when Bitcoin has broken the 50 on the weekly. The Bitcoin miners are selling off a bit today. IREN is still green, likely because of that fantastic news with Microsoft the other day. CIFR in the red, although much less red than many others, 1.2% down, likely on their news as well with Amazon. We'll talk about their deals very briefly because I did talk about it yesterday. We're also going to look at what we should expect from the Fed. Are we going to get another rate cut in December or not? Of course, data is still limited because of the government shutdown, but right now the market is more on the side of another cut than no cut. Now, we do have a good sign here in terms of crypto fear and greed index. Our fear level is the highest amount of fear we've had in quite a long time. Since April of 2025, keep that in mind, okay? Of course, we have seen more fear, like in February of 2025 when fear went down all the way to 10. But still, you know, if you like buying Bitcoin, buying certain things while there's high fear levels, we are at that point now. We are at extreme fear, which we haven't seen for quite a while. Now, first off, we'll look at the daily and then we'll look at the weekly and that 50 MA and what is so important to see. First off, Bitcoin is approaching oversold on the daily. Approaching that $100,000 psychological level will be important to hold it. If we break under 100,000, we might see a knee-jerk reaction to the mid-90s. I personally do think it'll play out to being a buying opportunity. Let's see what has happened when Bitcoin's been oversold on the daily. It hasn't happened often this cycle. If you're in a bull run, typically you don't see it oversold daily that often compared to being in a bear market. Last time we seen Bitcoin this oversold was back in February 2025 when we saw some extreme fear. Remember that? And buying while we were oversold on the daily would have given you the opportunity to buy down at this level right before we ended up rallying. What about the last time Bitcoin was oversold? Right here in July of 2024 to August. We saw Bitcoin bottom out here in the 50,000s. A fantastic buying opportunity in hindsight. Buying while Bitcoin was oversold, while there was high fear levels. While there was a lot of bullish divergences here, and while Bitcoin did go lower in price when the RSA started recovering, that was a sign that we were on our way back up, that bullish divergence, which we see quite a few times here when Bitcoin goes oversold. We saw the RSI bottom out on the August 16 and start recovering, but the price bottomed out in early September. This was a bullish divergence and it did mark a bottom. Again, here you can tell that this was another bullish divergence when we were oversold. You saw the RSI picking up while the price was going down, and we didn't go any lower than that. This was a fantastic buying opportunity on that oversold level. Once we reach oversold, look for those bullish divergences. If we see price going a little bit lower while the RSI starts picking up, this could be a sign that we are on our way back, and this bullish divergence could be similar to those previous ones where we see a massive run after. Now let's go to the weekly. This is an important level that I was talking about. The 50 MA on the weekly, while we have broken under it briefly, we don't get a candle to close under it. So far we are under it. Let's see where this candle takes us, where this week takes us. Do we flash crash under this 50 MA to quickly recover like we have seen in the past? Each time we get a double test. We got a test here, a run up by about $10,000 price, then a retest. Here we are. Same here. We tested it, got about a $10,000 bounce, retest, then rallied. Same here. We got a test, about a $10,000 to $15,000 bounce, retest again, and then we rallied. This is our second test of the 50 MA. Either we break it and it becomes a resistance and crypto winter ensues, possibly if it's anything like the past breaks of the 50 MA that become a resistance, or we're going to hold it up like we did these other two times in this bull run. And then we see an amazing November and December. It's all about this 50 MA in my opinion. It will be very important to watch. Let me know if there's any other indicators you guys are watching for a sign if Bitcoin has ended the cycle early, if we're entering crypto winter. Of course, when you look at the 30 indicators, if Bitcoin has topped out, none of them have hit. I showed you guys this maybe a couple of days ago, but here it is right here. Bull market peak indicators sell at the top. 0 out of 30 have hit, 100% hold. Of course, if Bitcoin isn't as volatile, isn't running as much as other cycles, which you get diminishing returns, of course, as cycles progress, there are going to be some of these that just simply are not going to hit. If Bitcoin's not as volatile, it's unlikely that all of these are going to hit. Hopefully that makes sense. I do think we would see some of these hit before the bull market is over, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But so far, 0 out of 30 of these indicators are saying to sell. Now, if you guys didn't watch my last video about IREN and CIFR, they saw some massive AI news. I'll just touch on this for a quick minute for those that didn't watch the last video. And I'll leave that at the end screen if you're interested in more detail about it. IREN is in with a $9.7 billion deal with Microsoft, giving Microsoft access to NVIDIA GPUs from IREN for a 5-year term, 20% prepayment. And then we have news with CIFR, a $5.5 billion 15-year agreement with Amazon Web Services. 300 megawatts of capacity coming in 2026. And these stocks did have a massive pop yesterday on this news. And this comes after the news with Google and TeraWulf maybe a month or two ago. Google, here's the month. Google in August said it was upping its stake with TeraWulf, providing an incremental $1.4 billion, bringing their total stake to $3.2 billion. Are we going to see more announcements down the road? Something with Meta perhaps, something with other Bitcoin miners that are AI heavy now. I believe this is the start of the announcements and we will see more before the year end. I will leave this down below for you if you want to read into it. Now, what should we expect in terms of a rate cut? We're about a month away from the December meeting. There's no meeting in November. The Fed is going to have a holiday. We will have a meeting in December. Right now, the market sees a 70% probability of a rate cut, a 29% probability of no cut. And while we did have a dissent between a couple of Fed members, one was calling for a 50 basis point cut, one was calling for no cut at all. We do have recent news here with Fed's Lisa Cook. Labor market concerns outweigh inflation risk. As you may know, the Fed has a dual mandate, labor market and inflation. They need to keep both as stable as possible. The Fed is trying not to be committed to a rate cut in December, although it is pretty likely. Of course, Fed Powell said a cut in December is not a foregone conclusion, or whatever the heck he said, which basically means you're not guaranteed a cut. He's not trying to give that market the fuel for a rally. And the Fed wants to be able to have the optionality of cutting or not, depending on what kind of data they get. They don't want to be set in stone on what they're going to do and have the market expect one thing and then have to back out and change their mind. So they're keeping it in a gray area whether we're going to get cut in December or not. I think it's pretty likely we get one. And Cook believes that inflation should continue to recede towards the 2% target for the Fed after the effects of the tariffs kind of fade away. Now, there is a lot of things going on with Lisa Cook. Of course, Trump tried to fire her over mortgage fraud allegations. I do like this quote from her: "The independence of the Fed," she added, "was a principle worth pursuing." Now, what do you guys think about Bitcoin? Is it going to hold that 50 MA on the weekly? Are we going to break under and find it as resistance? Is this cycle coming to an end early? Is this cycle going to extend into 2026? Typically, when looking back, if you're buying during high levels of fear, it does tend to play out in your favor if you're buying fear, if you're trimming into greed. How do you guys feel about these 30 indicators, not a single one being hit on the sell side? What do you think about the Fed? Are we going to see another cut in December? It'd be nice if we could get some more economic data, some labor market data, some inflation data. We're kind of going in somewhat blind here. I do think most of the Fed is more focused on the labor market rather than they are inflation. I mean, look at that last meeting, we got a cut. While inflation's basically at 3%, they are worried about the labor market. And I do think right now that is their main focus. And of course, these tariffs, the effects of the inflation from them will subside in time. And just like the general market, I think it's more likely we see a cut than we don't. But what do you guys think? What do you think about this IREN and CIFR news? Are we going to see more announcements soon? Is this Bitcoin test on the 50 MA just a buy-worthy pullback? Or is it a sign that we're about to break under it, find it as resistance? We'll have to keep an eye on it very closely, and time will tell. I do think if the 50 MA becomes resistance, that could be a sign, just like the past cycles, that we have topped out. So we'll have to closely watch the 50 MA on Bitcoin. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one.